Alrighty, last person coming in. Beautiful. So welcome, a warm welcome to all of you. I'm Mayuri. I would like to warmly welcome you to the webinar. And today's webinar is about building circular tech startups. And we are doing this in partnership with RMIT Activator, Boomerang Labs, and Lifecycles. And I think about the relaunch project and the accelerated and pre-accelerated programs that are running and have been running, Caitlin would give you a really good introduction. For the moment, I'll give a bit of an introduction about Anvarta. So to begin with, I'm joining you from Brunswick East in the lands of voluntary people from Kulin Nation. And I pay respect to the elders past and present. If I kind of quickly run through to an intro about Anvarta before we start the webinar. So we are hosting this webinar, and Anvarta's sort of key aim is to help organizations to transition to a regenerative model, and more particularly to help alternatives towards a circular economy to become competitive in markets. So that's what we work on. We are providing services in research, education, innovation, advisory, and transformation support. Is there a meaning for this acronym? There's nothing. That's the easiest way for me to put it forward to explain it to you. A few key examples of, vanished.
Maybe just pop up your slide on the screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing at the moment.
Unless others can see, I can just see the attendees. So that's it. Perfect.
Alrighty. Can you see me now? You can see the screen now, Caitlin?
Yeah, we can see
Yes,
it.
perfect. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. I was talking about this one. There's no particular reason for the acronyms. And a few key examples of some of the work we have done on the research area. We have done produced a report for the Victorian government contracted by Gordon TAFE on clean economy, skills for the future workforce. On the education hub, on the education side, we are building an education hub with some core courses currently released and a few other courses in development. And on the innovation advisory and transformation support, we are building decision tools and guides and circular business transition tools, helping organizations with strategy and preparing roadmaps and helping to activate these tools. And on the transformation support side, support and advisory for operationalizing them. So that's kind of a brief and a broad overview of what we're doing. And I would like to invite Caitlin to give an intro about RMIT Activator, and Caitlin would be also moderating the whole session. So over to you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Mayuri. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming along today. Appreciate you giving us your time on a Friday afternoon. I realise that's, the kind of slump time of the week, and everyone's looking forward to the weekend. We're here today to talk about circular tech, so all things circular tech. We do have a program offering called the Relaunch Circular Tech Pre-Accelerator, which is sort of setting the scene for the discussion today. But I'm really excited to sort of delve into all things circular tech with Anthony and Mayuri, both of whom are experts in this space and have been involved in both supporting businesses and also working on startups in this space. So we'll explore a little bit more through their presentations, and then we'll also move to a Q&A section at the end. So we've got a good long time for the Q&A. We've got 25 minutes. So please pop in your questions into the chat here, and I've got a few prompting questions as well, but I'm sure there'll be a wealth of questions from the audience here today. So to kick off with Relaunch, if you could just go to the next slide, please, Mayuri. So Relaunch is a 2-year program funded by LAUNCHVIK, and it focuses around circular tech. So we aim to catalyse and support the growth and the launch of circular tech startups and founders all across Victoria. It is open to all Victorians, so there's no requirement to be affiliated with RMIT or any other of the partners. And we have 3 amazing partners with this program. So we have obviously Mayuri and Anvarta. We're also working with Boomerang Labs. So Boomerang Labs are Australia's first circular only focused accelerator program, so that's really exciting. And we're also working with Lifecycles, so supporting with lifecycle assessment for our participants and teams who come through the program. We've completed 1 incubator so far, and then we're now up to about to start our first pre-accelerator program, so applications are open. This program is a 12-week, really tailored, structured program designed to support emerging founders and startups to develop business models, a go-to-market strategy, put a strong finance model behind them, and develop an MVP, so a minimum viable product, and basically get to the point at which you launch your business. As you can see, we have a variety of different support modalities, so growth sessions. We have dedicated coaching, so each of the teams will have an individual coach that's allocated to them and supports them throughout the 12 programs. We'll have a public pitch night in which you'll present your solution, and then selected teams will be invited to pitch for up to 20,000 equity fee funding. Thanks, Mayuri. Next slide. Just a little outline of the application process. So applications are open. As I mentioned, they close on Sunday, 16th of Feb. So you have just over a week if you're new to this one. And then we have a boot camp process in the middle, and then final applications are published on Friday, the 14th of March, with the program starting on the 24th of March. I'll pop in the chat once I'm done here the link to our website with all of the information, so don't stress, all of the info's there. There's a downloadable application guide which gives you more information and sort of overview of the process, and I'll pop in my email as well, so reach out if you have any questions. We did hold an Ask Me Anything for this program about a week ago, and I also have those slides, so if you're interested to see those, please just reach out on email and I can forward those through. So that's everything from me, and right on time on 3:10, so very impressed. And we're going to move now into a bit of a presentation section. So we're going to hear from Mayuri and Anthony, just kind of give us a really great overview and introduction of their various pieces of work, and then we'll move through into the Q&A. So if I could ask Mayuri, Mayuri's going to take us through her and Anvarta's understanding of circular tech and the different sort of functions and support modalities that circular tech can provide, as well as a fantastic array of solutions. So thank you, Mayuri.
Thanks, Caitlin. So probably Anthony would talk a lot more about his entrepreneurial journey on establishing a company with circular tech. What I thought of sharing with you was a few concepts around any potential business, an interested party. If you have potential interest to start up circular tech or support a business or invest in them, to think around a few ideas that you could sort of pursue. They're going to take 3 examples and sort of talk through them, but that's not all. There are several other. And these are some of the common ones and the ones that you kind of can grasp the concept and work through. So we know that we are trying to influence a broader system with the circular economy. And in doing that, we want to change and challenge some of the fundamentals. And when we work on diverting resources like to recover their value in a better way, one of the ways that we can enable it through is by helping to have information pathways created. So information to travel with products, components, and materials. You create ways for parties in the value chain to use them better, divert them to better places. So 3 concepts I thought of taking you through. Number 1 is material passports, the second one, marketplaces, and third one, enabling circular tech through co-design. So coming back to the base, what do I identify as circular tech? Any tech solution which basically advocates, promotes, enables principles of circular economy very broadly. So let's go and have a look at the material passports, the concept of material passports. So what it basically does is, as I initially shared with you, when we think of any sort of product or an asset, they are made of components, and the components are made of materials. So in a linear economy, we kind of have this very kind of robust, or a sort of a way of thinking around that. When a product reaches end of life, we kind of directly go to the material stage. Can we actually recycle the product and recover the material? We kind of neglect the second layer, which is components. So this example on buildings as material banks is about, can we actually tag information into components? So there's not only the forward pathways to construct something is possible, but we can also enable the reverse pathway. So this is an example of a building. There's somebody, probably I can hear a voice. If you could mute your microphones, if that's okay. Thank you very much. Buildings, an example of a building here. Buildings, as you know, could have a really long life, 30 years, 50 years. And some of the components that make a building could have varying degrees of lives. A doorknob could be 2 years, a door could be 10 years. So if we kind of construct in a way that the building's life would be extended by replacing some of the components which have a less long life, and at the same time, components can be recovered, and the information about components are stored within the components or with the components, and constructing something new with that is possible. So how is that presented? It can come in different forms. It can come with RFID, a QR code, any other sort of information tagging, and information can be in different forms as well. You kind of take a very technical product, it would have a product profile or a material safety data sheet, but in this one, it could have different type of information about what constitutes the product, and other information that are held for other value chain partners, like information on repair, for example. So that's a brief snapshot about material passports, which is one way of sort of going on circular tech. Second one, marketplaces, which is a very common one. So in this one, if you kind of go back to the principle and the concept, what we are trying to do is enabling connections between parties in the downstream and parties in the upstream. So what's the middle point? If we kind of take consumption as the point where we kind of use a product, after consumption, we typically consider it as a waste. Before consumption, there's somebody looking for resources. So what marketplaces do is to connect these parties. Somebody has something used or think that needs to be discarded, and there's another party looking for a resource. So this is an Australian example, Aspire, which was initiated and I think developed through CSIRO and currently a running business, which connects, again, needs for resources to availability of what could typically consider as waste or byproducts. So that's one type of marketplace. This is a more kind of elaborate and a marketplace which connects a larger part of this product life cycle. Basically a solution, an app called AirRobe. So what it does is, if you kind of, if you were design aware, which you purchase at typically a higher cost, you pay a premium price for that. The moment you purchase it, you add to your AirRobe account, and then you use the product. And if you feel like you're done with it, or it's too expensive to keep it in my wardrobe, I want to share it. AirRobe enables you to basically hire it for use, hire it for a period, or resell it. So from the moment that you purchase, you're actually concerned about matching the needs someone else would have on your product with your availability of the product. So this kind of connects them, I would say, throughout a life cycle in a more comprehensive way. So this is another example for marketplaces. Going to the third one, which is enabling co-design. So this is a concept that is probably connecting some of the other pieces that are very valuable for a circular economy. So what I have here is the typical linear value chain. We extract resources, we manufacture things with it. things we manufacture could be materials, could be components, could be products. We consume them, and it goes for resource recovery in the linear economy. Typically in manufacturing, we focus on optimizing what we manufacture. So typically these are optimized for functionality or aesthetic appearance or some sort of product performance. And we also cost optimize our value chain in manufacturing for value competitiveness in the value chain. Like, for example, we make a certain product at a certain size, or make it transportable or sellable in a certain way. So when we work on optimizing it as per the need for production and consumption, we miss a certain point there. And when this product goes to recycling, we get complaints from recyclers. The products are difficult to recycle. It's non-value adding and sometimes value destroying. So it becomes complex for them. It's harder to recover materials. This is a sort of the complaint or the feedback that recyclers kind of have. So the question is, they think that I wish it was better. What if the product has been actually made for recycling? Wouldn't it be better for us? And they're wondering who to tell. And on the other hand, manufacturers ask the question, how do we know? So what enabling co-design this is one example, but co-design means you're designing together and you're kind of influencing the design through feedback and information from other parties. So if we kind of see a connection here where companies who are in recycling or resource recovery or component recovery or in other form of sort of retrieval of materials inform the manufacturer, especially the design phase, on how to influence design so that recovery part can be easier. So that is where co-design is enabled here. And one good example we are going to discuss is what Anthony and his company has come up with called Prep Design. So I'll not steal the show, Anthony, but to give a very quick idea of what it does, it has matched Australia's recycling capability. What are the constraints? What is possible with Australian recycling plants to recycle, and informs that to packaging manufacturers when they kind of go through it, when they're in the design phase. It gives the constraints, informs the constraints of what the recycling system can do and cannot do, and tells them upfront that your product is recyclable or not, which then informs the fact that it can, if it is not recyclable, this is a type of it is disposal information that we should have it. And in partnership with Thanatark, they basically have come up with informing Australian consumers through the Australian recycling label. So with that, I'll pass over to Anthony to explain more about Prep Design, and also probably to Caitlin, maybe if you want to give an intro about Anthony first.
Great, thank you, Mayuri. And fantastic segue. I won't say much. I think, Anthony, you'll speak really fantastically about your journey with Prep Design. I know you only have one slide, and very confident about sharing some fantastic information just with this one slide. So over to you.
Thanks, Caitlin and Mayuri. It's great to be here with you all, and thanks for joining us on the Friday afternoon. So Prep Design has a tool called Prep, and what, as Mayuri said, Prep simulates from curbside through a materials recovery facility and all the people who reprocess it, and to ensure there's an end market. So that's only a slide, but what I wanted to talk about today is more about what I've done, I suppose, up until this point. I'm not a tech person, and I'll talk about that later, or a content person. And so from your point of view, as a sort of a founder, you might need to think about things about what your team should be in the future in terms of what resources you need and skills. But I was going to talk about today about three particular things that I suppose through my journey that might help you in your journey as well. The first one we'll touch on is IP. The second one we'll touch on is timing. And the third one we'll touch on in terms of that tech side about the merits of internal versus external skills and what best suits your organisation. Now, the first one is IP. Now, IP to me is a very important thing if you're a founder or somebody who wants to run a business, especially in the tech field, and there's lots of things to consider. IP, I suppose, ownership can do very important at the start of the process. And there's lots of templates available. If you're going through a sort of a design session or some sort of a brainstorming session with potential partners, you might want to start with that sort of thing. So there might be an attribution aspect right at the start. But also the thing is, when you're going through that journey of creating something, it's not necessarily you have to wait to the end to then finalize the IP arrangement. Very much IP, I think, should be done in an iterative way. So as aspects are being created along the way, you're sort of picking them up as you go. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to commission lawyers or continually doing things, but it's more an arrangement between you and your partners. It might be an email here and there, or an MOU, or it's all helping along the way to I suppose define that attribution through that process. So thinking about it as part of I suppose the journey that you're going on from an IP journey, it'll get more complex as time goes on as you build your platform or your tool, but always be considering that when people come into partner, that also I'll discuss later on as well with you might have an external supplier helping you out. That's also very important as well, because you're the person who's come up with the idea. And when someone helps you out with a bit of a module, okay, who owns that module? Okay, so it's never ending, but IP, you don't necessarily have to become an expert, but think about who you can bring on board, maybe as a consultant or on your board to sort of help you out. It's a critical part of setting your own business up in this field. The second thing is timing. Now, timing to me is another key thing, and I've been thinking recently about the wave of societal emotions that we go through. Now, for some years now, there was sort of a progressive push, and people were saying, oh, this is sort of a woke agenda. And that went on for a while, and then it led to the anti-woke agenda. And so through that change, we've ended up with, say, big companies saying, well, maybe 5 years ago, ESG was the big thing. We're all doing this. And now people have come off that, and they're not talking about it as much. So I mentioned that as one example of timing, that whilst you might think that you're on a bit of a crest of a wave, I want to jump on it, you need to be sure that wave is going to go all the way through to the beach and beyond, I suppose. But sometimes things can be distorted by community sentiment, political policy. So be always thinking about all those things that might happen. Ask the really tough questions early, because they may be consequential to you in terms of your longevity as a business. And it's all very well to be successful for 2 years, but then the question is, what happens in the 3rd year and the 4th year? Of course, you're going to make mistakes. Of course, you're going to fumble. And then it comes back to being more adaptable and also resilient, because that timing thing you'll never get perfectly. But then the question is, well, what sort of resources do I need to get from one point to the next? So on my story, I started out on my story with this Prep Design as the end point as a company 17 years ago. So 17 years ago, it was a Word document. And then 3 years later, it was an Excel spreadsheet with hyperlinks. And it wasn't until 10 years ago, at the end of 2014, we had a website. So I suppose I would call that a minimum viable product. We had something on the market and we started going. But then it's now gone another 10 years to get at this point where we're talking to you now. And a key part about this resourcing factor is who's impacted by a disaster in your life as a founder or someone who's setting up a circular tech business. It's not just you or your your founders, but also think about your family and your support, whether you've got partners or kids or other responsibilities. I'm sharing my experiences here as well, because when you're going through this emotional, I suppose, it's a dream. You're going through, got these great aspirations of doing these things, and along the way you get kicked and you get pushed back and you get back up again, and that's all part of your story that you'll have at the end of the day. But through that process, there are other people around you who are being impacted. So I think you should be cognizant of their feelings as well. Maybe that's a bit soft, I suppose, but that's the reality. You've got to live in your own life as well as being a founder. So watch that. The third thing I was going to mention is the aspect of internal versus external skill sets. So as I said at the outset, I'm not a tech person. I can explain the prep tool to some degree. It's a code base based on PHP. We have a database. I think it's MySQL. We've got some APIs. We use Jira. So we've got all these tickets. So I know how to use Jira now. But I'm not an IT expert what we do is we, Prep Design, outsource that to another IT company, and they basically host this platform for us, and then we're the conduit between our client in APCO and then the end developers. So that's our situation. Whereas you might be coming in as an expert yourself. You got this whole idea, you started to build this app or some sort of thing, that's you. But I think you should consider the merits of having that internal expertise versus external. The thing from our point of view is our external expertise has a number of people, some in software, some in infrastructure, some in scamming, some in firewall protection, some in AWS. There's a whole range of skill sets there that I get to benefit from by going to one group, whereas if you have it internally, that you won't have that. But on the flip side, I always look at that to say it'd be great to have someone internally to say, if I can just pick up the phone and say, tomorrow morning, can you just jump on and get this done? We need a bit of a bug fix change or something done. And therefore you're very responsive. So there's merits both ways. I get that. But my point is to you as founders or creators is for you also to be considering that as well, because just because you've got an idea doesn't necessarily mean you bring in as a founder, co-founder, someone who designs websites or apps. Maybe not. Maybe it's better to bring someone who's an actual content manager, maybe complementary to what your content skills are, and then from there determine what the IT skills that you need behind you. So they're my 3 points. Hopefully that gives you some sense of, I suppose, the prep tool. Here it is. It's used by companies now, as Mayuri said, to design packaging that's recyclable. We know it's at the bottom of the hierarchy. Here we are talking about circular economy tech, and we're talking about recycling. I get that. I also love about reuse and avoidance. So, and that's one of the criticisms I get from a business owner, that you're working at the bottom of the hierarchy. But I think it's an important thing, as Mayuri said, at the design stage, to do the best we can from a co-design point of view, to provide something that can make money for the recyclers at the end of the day. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Anthony. It's great to have that personal perspective and experience as a founder, and it's interesting and fascinating to hear about the sort of iterations of the business across time, and sort of remaining abreast of challenges and opportunities as they emerge. I just wanted to note too, for attendees on the call, so our definition of circular tech involves both software and hardware, and we've just talked a lot about software and sort of digital solutions today, and in some of these case studies, but just reminding that hardware is also included, and we do really need these hardware solutions in terms of products and materials and things like that, particularly in the circular space, and solving for a lot of challenges, whether it's in the kind of clean energy space, climate, obviously, and lots of other sort of applications and functions. So just to note that. We'll jump into the Q&A space now, and I've got a couple already to kind of start things off, but please do pop either in the chat, or I'll pause at certain points and open up to the participants, and you can just come off mute and read out your question. But I'll start with a couple that I've got already. Anthony, while we've got you here, I did wonder if you could talk to a bit about what you've seen in terms of engagement with industry and government across your experience in this space, and how you've found the process of partnering or piloting these sorts of tech solutions, and any kind of tips around approaching those sorts of piloting opportunities or partnering opportunities, and sort of selling the value proposition that you've got.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, because back in 2014, that was very different to now in terms of industry acceptance of our program. Back 10 years ago, the industry was looking for, well, if it's being led and we'll follow type thing, and otherwise we're not going to do anything. Whereas now we're 10 years forward, and the packaging industry is saying to the regulators, we want this to be regulated. And they're saying that because so many have come on board, and they're concerned about free riders who aren't on board. So they've become the leaders now, waiting for people to follow. So that has been quite a change in terms of the mindset of the industry over that period. And now government is becoming more, I suppose, aware of the program, looking at having regulations in place to try and harmonise things across Australia. But that's a long way away now from where we started 10 years ago to sort of put something on the market to see that it might service some need.
Great, and obviously the complexities across different states and regions, international to national, brings a little bit of complexity there. It's we often see it is a bit of a struggle to understand those different regulatory environments, and particularly if you're looking at a solution to offer across national scope or even internationally. Mayuri, one for you I've got is you've mentioned this co-design element and how we can see circular tech solutions sort of assisting in this collaborative approach that we need often in the circular space and with circular solutions. I'm wondering what are some of the core barriers or challenges that you've seen or that you anticipate these new circular technologies to face when they're sort of trying to create this improvements around information exchange or validating product and material information or credentials.
Okay. I guess the example I took, Caitlin, on how kind of each value chain partners are working on a more kind of a self-optimized model. I think that's one of the key barriers. So traditionally, the way that we are operating, we are wired to think within our organizational boundary, and to make the company profitable, to make a product line profitable or an SBU profitable. So that's kind of a somewhat self-optimized model. And when you have a sort of a smaller boundary that you work on, which is your organizational boundary, which is within your control and influence, you can only optimize it for one thing or the other, and the level of change that you can do is small. So to kind of step outside that boundary, you kind of first need to have that create that common understanding on different interests of parties. What can we achieve together? What sort of joint beneficial outcomes, mutually beneficial outcomes we could achieve together, and create that trust and understanding to work together. So I think that's kind of one of the main barriers. And when you go through this process, you come to a stage where you share more information than you would traditionally share. And some of these challenges that Anthony was talking about on shared IP and a few other things come there. So are you happy, for example, to share your profitability across a product line to come to an understanding where can we actually achieve a different profit in a different ways, probably same or more profit, but in a different way by collaborating with each other. So that sort of sensitive information sharing would come when you kind of really integrate and work together. So to have that joint understanding created is one. Probably to do any of these, you kind of have to step out of your own sort of sphere of thinking to understand the other person's, to understand the need to expand your boundary and to wanting to step into the other person's shoes. So having that intent and creating that intent within your organization, getting other people's buy-in to work on something like that, that's I would say another one, which is an internal barrier.
It's fascinating, that trust question as well. And how do you build trust and maintain trust, between partners? And it brings to mind for me too the kind of the broader systems, sort of view that we're working within the circular economy, and how we're essentially trying to shift an entire economic system as well. So it doesn't really work to have circular solutions and offerings and relationships within a broader economic system that remains linear. So I think there's broader systems change that needs to occur around how we develop partnerships and relationships and share information and build and support trust. I've noted a question coming through. Thanks, Andrew, and please keep popping them in there. I just want to ask one more question. And this can be for either of you, so please, Mayuri or Anthony, please jump in. But I'm wondering about the potential need for sort of interoperability with these technologies. So we've given the example of the digital passport, that might be integrated into other platforms for tracking and tracing or reporting or things like that. And I think this goes to your points just here, Mayuri, around the need potentially for standard language, or, what about product standards across national or international lines, digital integration. It can start to get pretty complex. So yeah, Anthony or Mayuri, if you want to talk about that need for interoperability.
Yeah, I can touch on that. I think that's mentioned the APIs that we have, and I suppose data has become new thing
Can
to
you
talk about.
explain API, please, Anthony?
Well, that's a really good
Anthony?
question, because an API, as I said, I'm not a tech person. I know what it does. I know an API takes information or data from one point to another, and through that processes the API, and it might have gateways, it might have locks or sort of filters that it goes through in the process. So the API allows communication between two data sets, and the APIs that we have are designed to do that. And it's really to accommodate interoperability. So it might be, for instance, you've got a SAP or an Oracle or some sort of ERP system, and you're holding information, and you want to then bring that into, say, for instance, our tool or any other tool, and on the back end, you want to go back out again to sort of into some other, maybe it might be a customer. So it might be from supplier to customer. And when you're building these sorts of things, it's thinking about the nomenclature, the terminology that's used, the units. And so Ralph Moyle and other people in the Australian Institute of Packaging over years have tried to sort of standardise terminology, so that this interoperability can actually occur. Because if you're not on the same page, things don't talk to each other.
Yeah, great. Mayuri, did you have anything to add?
No, all good.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, we'll jump to some of the questions. So Andrew's asking, as a non-technical founder, Anthony, wondering if you could talk a bit more about your background and how you came into this space and became a circular tech founder.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for the question. I did engineering back in the day. I worked as a consultant, a sustainability consultant for many years. And it was through that time that I was really looking to solve problems as much as I could for the clients I had. And it was at that time that I sort of came to this idea, I suppose, in terms of a solution for this particular challenge of recyclability. And but as I say, it sat there for 7 years as a spreadsheet, as a Word document, and it was only through a bit of pestering where I started to think, well, there is more interest here than I thought there was. And timing was the key factor there. When the time came that there was a need for something like this, I had it on a platter ready to go, so I introduced it, and then I plugged away and thought, well, I'll now focus on that rather than what I was doing in the past.
Perfect. I think just to note too, so most of our coaches in the Pre-Accelerated program have personal experience in the startup space, so can kind of share about their journey moving through that space and how they've developed successful products and launched them on the market. And I think having that cohort around you can help as well, so you can kind of learn and share from each other. For some people, they're new to the startup space and it's their first venture, and for others, they're kind of a serial founder.
Yeah. I went through my own commercialization innovation incubation program myself in 2017. I was just floundering, and then having that support around me to work with me over 9 months, that was life-changing for me, to sort of have people come in and give their thoughts and their support and their, I suppose, their care for what you're trying to achieve. Without that, it wouldn't have happened.
Definitely. And I think thinking closely too about what kind of accelerator or space is right for you. Our program might not be right for you. You might be looking for a little bit of something else and find another community that works best. So kind of thinking through your business goals and personal goals and what you're looking for, and then finding the right support space. So Edward is asking, should technology be open source to accelerate the transition to circular? And how can we use technology to speed things up?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, Edward, and I've been challenged that a number of times to sort of say, well, you've done this thing. It seems to be pretty cool. People like it. One of the things I've been doing in that process is the way we define recyclability is really a paradigm shift from the past. And the way I describe that is our tool defines recyclability based on size, materials, and shape, whereas the past is based on format and the plastic identification code. So format is pizza boxes, trays, coffee cups. The plastic identification code is number 1, 2, and 5, etc. So our system is a complete disruptor. So before we even look to have some sort of an open source thing, we're still going through the battle of convincing people that the SMS approach is better for the circular economy than the old way of doing things. Because if you ask 530 councils, they'll give you this approach. And if you ask us, we've got this approach. So I think that there's a timing aspect there. And the second thing is about our competitors. So we're not operating alone. We have our competitors in Germany. We have competitors in Austria. We have competitors in the UK. We have competitors in the US. And they're going to do their own sort of thing. They're trying to make their tool the best as compared to what we're doing. So there's a lot of factors there. There's commercial factors, and we're trying to put money back in to build it to be the best as it can be. And the only sustainability aspect of that that's relevant is to stay in business, to keep doing it. So therefore, for us, there'd be a massive downside to open sourcing everything based on our competitors and our ability to survive.
Yeah, great, Mayuri. Did you want to jump in?
I want to add something to the previous question by Andrew. Where do this, being a non-technical founder, where do people come from? So through the RMIT's Accelerate program, as well as various people that have come across in this industry, some of them are university researchers, some of them are circular design thinkers, and there are lots of people who probably come from more technical engineering professions. They're already in the operations. They figure out that there are faster, easier, better way to do it, and this is the right thing to do. And they kind of sometimes find the technical founders who could give that. There's a smart monitoring system that we need, and we kind of, let's do this as a hardware solution. Or some people go and find a programmer, and so they're kind of in that space operating, and their new ideas are coming through. Whereas in a sort of a university type of space, you're looking at a problem and trying to innovate things in a more focused way to come up with a solution. So there are some other people who actually work on something that they've been passionate about for a long time, and at the end they're like, this is a circular tech solution, and call it that. So there's different sort of ways of coming about it, I think.
No, good point.
Yeah, definitely. And, quite personally, I don't really mind whatever, if we call it climate tech, circular tech, whatever it's called, as long as it's, solving for the current problems and challenges we're facing. Amy's asked about if is anyone working on identifying and supporting those connections between people, businesses, initiatives. Philip has jumped in ACE Hub, which was perfect. That was my first thought to that question. And I think, from what I know that there's different communities. So there's Climate Salad looking at climate tech. There's a Vic Tech Clean Tech cluster. So there's sort of industry and sort of thematic focused communities or sort of marketplaces or spaces for that. But it is a great question. Obviously, we've got Seamless looking at the textile space and emerging product stewardship schemes, so looking at specific materials or products out there. But in terms of that broader systems view, which, Amy, I think you're asking about, I'm not sure that there's really anyone or many people working in, I guess, encouraging those increased connections and identifying those gaps and encouraging, solutions to fill it. I will, if I can be so cheeky as to ask Emily Adamson, I think you're on the call. I'm wondering if you would be able to just speak to what you see happening in the government space, whether it's what Victorian state government is doing currently, or if you see kind of emerging trends in that government space, if you'd be happy to share.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Caitlin. I think what has come out of government at the moment is the economic growth statement. So that's something that you can all have a look at. And I'm pretty sure clean tech and circular economy are key focuses of that over the next coming years. So that's a really good indicator in terms of what government is looking for. And I'm sure there's going to be some more support being announced over the next 6 to 12 months potentially. Don't take my word on it. I'm not in the know of when it will happen, but it's good to see that there is sort of that economic growth statement that's really incorporating this is a vital sector. So yeah, I can send the link in the chat to have a look at that framework.
Thank you, and sorry for calling you out on the spot, but I think it's a good call out to particularly regarding that clean economy space. So clean economy, that the state government's definition includes circular, climate and energy, so clean energy. So I think that's just an important framing to keep in mind. There'll be likely increased sort of resourcing and effort put in that, particularly in supporting kind of the skills development space as well. So sort of interesting evolution to keep eyes on. Marco asks about community sentiment and political influence regarding the longevity that was mentioned earlier, and what's your take on the current and near future state or vibe? So Mayuri or Anthony, thoughts on that one?
You can start, Mayuri.
Okay. All right. So the longevity and durability, I think, is a sometimes it looks obvious, but it's a tricky one. I think a lot of the products we manufacture, we generally want them to last as long as we want, but then that persistence we build into the product is problematic when it reaches end of life unless it's designed to recover. So, for example, if you kind of think of a packaging or another sort of a product which we want it to be durable until we actually consume it, but the moment you have consumed it and you kind of want to get rid of it, you want it to degrade faster, degrade sooner, or sort of disappear. So typically I think I would like to mention the general sentiment about, let's say, for example, a material like plastic, which is kind of identified as which is a persistent, versatile material, but generally we kind of demonize it a lot because it lasts long at the wrong place when we kind of have littering or something else happening outside where we want it to be. So my answer to that would be its durability is a great thing. We could try to, as long as we have a way to recover it, we have a way where we have thought of the next life and a proper diversion to the next life is properly designed. Durability is great to achieve because you get better utility per resources. In that, if you kind of take it as a ratio, utility per resources, which means services that a product gives against the resources and energy that has gone into it, durable products give a better value. But the trick where you kind of have things like packaging where we should design them to flow in a certain way. And sometimes durability might not be the best way to go. And so it's kind of appropriate design rather than always durable design. And incorporating durability at the right place in the right way is, I think, what we need to think of.
Well, my take is slightly different in terms of reading Marco's question. If you're talking about longevity of a business, then I would think that the area we're working in circular tech or recycling, I believe, is a less polarizing topic of discussion compared to climate change. I think we're more likely to have a bipartisan support for this sort of program in the area of circular economy, and even it's got the word economy in it. It helps, and materials efficiency and productivity. They're very positive words. So I would have thought the vibe is pretty good for being in this space. Whereas if you go through the climate change aspect or even the renewable energy or now hydrogen, these are all going through peaks and troughs, of course, because there's more politics associated with them, whereas this is more benign, I think.
Yeah, it's a great point. I've actually just popped in the chat a link to the federal government Circular Economy Advisory Committee, and they've released late last year a report and a framework for circularity moving forward. It is, of course, a little too soon to be seen whether that will result in tangible kind of resourcing and support at the federal and across those state levels, but it's at least a symbolic move in the right direction, and some key priority sort of sectors that they've outlined in that report. So worth a bit of a look through. Did anyone else have any questions? Feel free to just come off mute and jump out with your question.
There's one there from Amy, Caitlin.
Oh, is there? Sorry, I've missed that. Is this in the chat?
I think
Andrew's assuming that's Anthony. What's the impact of competing with others who are working on the same solution versus collaboration? Yeah, great question. So we do talk a lot about collaboration in the circular economy, and obviously within that startup space, it's really important as well to look at that market opportunities and gaps. So what's been your experience?
Oh, the collaboration is a very important thing where it fits. And for instance, like a life cycle assessment tool might collaborate with a recyclability tool. We work with Lifecycles, but when it comes to competing, my approach has been in that regard internationally to be friendly, I suppose, to get to know where everybody's at, how they're approaching it, And that might end up being that we collaborate. But I sat down, I was in Europe in the last year and sat down with a few competitors, and we spoke about what we're doing generally, and they spoke about who their clients are. And I just said, look, we're just competitors. Let's leave it at that. And the thing is, the difficult thing is, I found that with a group in Germany, when I got to speak to them, when I was introduced to them to potentially collaborate, just they were too far gone. They'd already spent tech and money and built this framework, and it's hard for someone to go back if they've just spent $20,000-$30,000 on their own tech and they're very proud of it. If you come along and said you want to cooperate, it's not so much merging them together. It's saying, do you want to join with us and scrap your one? One party might be saying to the other. So it's difficult if you don't get the timing right to be other than competitors. But as long as it's friendly, then the world's a better place.
I think that's an interesting like observation, and exactly my point is that I feel like it would be really good if we were actually like setting the ground rules, like actually going, okay, right, instead of like I've been in various different conversations about, you know, some really great solutions that are just not being duplicated here in Australia, like they're in Europe. There's some amazing circular solutions that we're not like either grabbing and copying, or grabbing them and bringing them over. And it's kind of like, why are we duplicating the expenditure of our resources when we're already strapped for?
Yeah.
You know, it's way easier to scam someone, to just check into a job that you get paid lots for, or and you know, rape and pillage the world, than it is to start doing this stuff. So we need to make it easier. We have to make it easier for people to choose this pathway. And I really want to know who is working on that, who's working on the involving the grassroots and getting them to connect and collaborate with all of their skills at that level. Go, guess what? We've got it all here. Let's do it, rather than all creating their own little circular economy startups and all spending. I mean, I just did a circular economy founder startup course, and they were like, oh, it's hard to be a solo founder. And I'm like, why are you even suggesting that we should be a solo founder? Where is the solo founder, you know, or the founder, or the ideas, like place where we talk about what is needed? Because another one of, when we did our pitches, another one of the barriers, which I've asked a question about, is for example, this particular person shared that the barrier to success for the red cycle was that there was somewhere in the chain that didn't actually get looked after. And I'm like, why didn't somebody suggest that somebody started a startup of that? Why didn't somebody tell us before the whole thing fell in? You know, who's looking at the gaps, who's looking at the limitations, and who's working on either patching them or backing it up and starting from the beginning and going, instead of telling everybody to go out there and start a tech startup, like facilitating that they do it together. You know what I mean?
That's really the point. So it's Amy, is it?
Yes.
Lovely to meet you. Well, see, from my point of view, that's awesome advice. My focus has been on pushing out from Australia rather than pulling in. But so when I try to get we had the system set up in UK for 5 years with a partner, and then that stopped in 2023, and they've built their own tool.
Yeah.
But we're still in there, so now we're competing with them because we think, I know ours is better. I know, is this being recorded? But I just do. I just want to think. I'm passionate about it. So we're competing.
We need to move away from that direct competition. If we're wanting to create more circular
you're
solutions,
filling gaps as well. Absolutely. And that's where the collaboration comes in, where you're not competing at all. You're saying, well, you do that bit and I'll do this bit, and we'll talk to each other. And the red cycle example is a great example. End of life versus design stage, completely different players altogether, but they're also start of the same supply chain. It's just they don't necessarily work out how they're going to complement each other.
Yeah.
And we need more of that. So I'm right with you.
Do you know, and I know that there's the ACE Hub and that's there for, but I still feel like it's people in their own little silos asking questions about their own little things, rather than how do we actually create a nest for empowering this circular shift, you know?
It's a great question. And I think the challenge is sort of a lot of actors probably say, well, that's not my responsibility, and sort of push it off to other else. I do also see a lot of people claiming a brokering role as well. So to my mind, that kind of, if you're in a brokering role, you know, you should be brokering around identifying those gaps and encouraging collaborations for opportunities. I do see a bit of a role there for government, and particularly local government, the local council. I think they get a better sense of kind of the business landscapes of their LGAs, the opportunities. They have those relationships and can kind of support that. I think there's a role for research as well, to do a scoping or a mapping around, what currently exists, what opportunities, what's happening overseas, where are we falling short, what are the emerging opportunities. And I think some of that work does occur, but I think, to be doing it from a perspective of, okay, how can I encourage and support those collaborations? I think the challenge is we're also still working in a linear capitalist system as well. So the economy part of the circular economy, unfortunately, still is pretty capitalist. And so this is speaking very plainly and personally and not on behalf of my organisation right now, but, I think to encourage people to work in that different way and to think in that different way is a challenge, and it's asking people to put these other objectives over profit. And that's also a challenge. People also have bills to pay and rent to pay. So yeah, it's that system thinking thing, and it's also that thing that we need in the circular spaces, which is that we need change to occur at all of the different levels in all of the different ways, kind of at the same time, and that's a coordination piece, and that's challenging. Mary, what are your thoughts? I know that you and obviously I'm aware we're almost at time, so people, if you've got a 4 o'clock, obviously feel free to jump off and do reach out via the links there if you want to chat with us later.
Andrew's got his hand up too.
Yeah.
Andrew, jump in.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me turn my camera on. Hang on.
I
just wanted to kind of add to what Amy was saying, probably in opposition to what Amy was saying. Like, I think one of the challenges is like making the whole process profitable for people, because a lot of good people, smart people, just want to do things that are profitable. And it is a capitalist society, but we're kind of trying to create, we're maybe the idealists trying to create a better world for everyone, but that everyone doesn't really fit into capitalism. So how's that aspect fit into, like, where you're reaching out to partners or clients and where they've been working in a linear capitalist revenue model before, trying to balance that out? Yeah, that's sort of the challenge I'm seeing. Like, yeah, it'd be great if everyone was collaborative, but I think making it profitable for everyone is the key.
But I mean, we can't continue to make profitable. We can't continue to do what we're doing. The world is dying, and we will run out of world before we make all the money we need to make, right? So we all know that.
It'd be better if that was the case, but I don't think it's going to work.
But I mean, well, yeah, okay. So how do we create the nest for the different way of thinking that would actually facilitate a different way of doing things, right? And what are the consequences of continuing to do the profit-driven situation? And I'm not saying that not-for-profits are the best, but why are we going to make more money? Why is making money? Why are we even talking about that? Like, we need the solutions, people need to pay their bills, but that's different to profit. Profit is extra, right?
Can I add something to that? Probably the one on collaboration, competition as well. So in a circular economy, if you kind of actually move into a lot of the product service models, production will reduce. So there's the fear of anti-consumption, reducing of demand is very like that. You kind of companies could see it as a sort of an obvious effect, which is kind of a bit pushing them back. But on the other hand, the actual model should increase the service revenue, because you would actually have less materials being extracted. It's getting repaired, going to the market, coming back, getting repaired, remanufactured, going to the market, coming back. So a lot of the product revenue actually need to convert to service revenue. And that's a shift companies need to make, and it needs to shift to that. It's not a value decreasing model, it shifts value. So unless you can see it and welcome it and appreciate it, that's where the anti-consumption thinking comes in. And on the collaborating and competition piece, a comment that I kind of want to add on, I think our competition is coming probably in this area. This is very fast evolving. Some things we are developing becomes basic and general, and it becomes common knowledge. I think Edward's comment on, shouldn't this be open source? So things like marketplaces, for example, you could have Gumtree, which is a very generic marketplace. then when you kind of go into more niche areas where companies try to create competitive advantage, your challenge is to innovate fast enough and focused enough to give that differentiation to create a competitive edge. And your competitor is yourself most of the time. So for example, think of Gumtree and then evolving it to like, yeah, we are going to white goods. And on white goods, we are going to refrigerators. The more focused your solution becomes, the more differentiated you become, and better your competitive edge in relating to the actual need. So probably in a lot of the, I would say, information-related tech solutions, when something becomes generic, that becomes common knowledge, basic, and you kind of have to step up to innovate further in a focused and a specialized way. So we're actually against ourselves in some of the competition aspects, I think.
We might have to wrap up there. Thank you. It was a fantastic discussion.
Conversation going. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Maybe drop LinkedIn links if you're happy to continue that conversation, if you have solutions for Amy, for all of us. But yeah, great to see, obviously, a lot of interest and passion, and we're talking about the future of the world, definitely. So a bit grandiose, but there we are for a Friday afternoon. So I'm just
going to make one parting comment. If you look back, and I've been doing this for a little bit of time, we keep patching things, right? And we know it all now. We can see where the gaps are. We can see, we know that patching the solutions is not a good idea, and then we create a new solution that creates another set of problems. And I just think we should really start at that basic. And I know that that's really complicated, but we could start somewhere with that conversation, couldn't we? Because I know there's lots of people who are going, I don't want to make lots of money. I want to make a difference. I don't want to participate in this world that is destroying the world, but I want to participate in something else. And we need to bring those people together and then give them something to do and help them meet their needs in whatever way they need to in order to participate in this change. Don't you think?
The sort of the sufficiency theory, which I've been reading a bit about recently. I love. Great provocation, I think, to leave us there. I'll just pass back to Mayuri to close us off for the webinar today.
Thank you, everyone. Very engaging and very fantastic discussion. It's a Friday afternoon, as we all know, and I think you have maybe an hour or so left for the rest of your day to get on with your things. And really appreciate your participation. And I think Caitlin gave some input around if you want to join the Activator program, pre-accelerator program. She shared the contact details, and please feel free to get in touch with her or with us. If you have any more questions, you want to have a chat around it, and happy to connect and keep the conversation going. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in another webinar that we organize later.
Thank you.
Thank you. And special thanks to Anthony and Caitlin and all of you participated.
Cheers. It was my birthday, so I'm knocking off early and having a drink, so that's okay.
Many happy returns, Anthony.
Should catch up at some point, Amy and Andrew, to talk further. Love to keep chatting. You're muted though.
Yeah. Sounds good, Anthony.
Okay.
Andrew, where are you from?
I'm in Melbourne.
Yeah. So what do you do? Why are you here?
Industrial design, background in retail design, and there's a lot of shit that goes into landfill from retail. So
yeah.
I just feel like there should be a bit of a think tank for those of us that are actually going, we really need to create some solutions, because I reckon we're just we're all sitting in our little spaces thinking about the same stuff, and probably that conversation would be really good. And I've been trying to figure out how to do that and how to find all the people to do it with. So anyway, I put my LinkedIn in the chat if anybody wants to jump on and add me. And I just would like to start a conversation, about how do we start this kind of like think tank of what do we need, and who's going to do it? That's what you do when you're at a crisis, right? You go, who's got what skills? Is there a doctor on board? Is there an engineer in the vicinity?
We're trying to get companies on board that are for-profit companies, and they want to see how they're going to make more money, or not spend as much money. And then you've got us who are trying to do the right thing, and we're going, we're not doing it for the money. But you're not going to get enough people on board driving the innovation if they're thinking, we're making money for our clients or our customers, and we're happy to make nothing.
I understand your point, and I agree, but I don't think we can keep saying let's just make it profitable, because that is the whole problem in the first place. That's how we got here in the first place. The government is not going to regulate things fast enough to change that, and we've already got so many people. I mean, if you just let's just go down to the other end of the spectrum. Like, the people that can't meet their needs, what do? They break the law. They're criminals. They steal things. They find ways to have their needs met, right? So that's what I'm saying is that if the focus is making money, and there's lots of businesses out there that are cutting corners and doing illegal stuff in order to make more money, and so if that's the focus, then we're still going to facilitate that kind of unethical behavior. And
I just touch on, Amy, the point though. From my point of view, profit's not always the focus. If purpose is the focus and there has to be profit, then can't you have your cake and eat it? I mean, it's we're trying to achieve things, and we need money to achieve those things.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying not make money, but
no, but I'm saying that if it's all going back in, so that's the thing about not-for-profit versus a profit. In both cases, you're putting money back in if the business is driven by purpose. And if it is, that should be the thing that you encourage. You encourage founders to be doing things based on value and greater impact for the planet. And if they are, then you get behind them and say, can you make a greater impact rather than 100,000 people? Yes, 1 million now. Can you do more now, please? I get 2 million people. That's the thing, that the scale on the basis that provided it's being driven by purpose, you get behind that. Whether it's profit or not for profit after that, that's almost secondary to me.
Yes,
focus on people having purpose, then we're going to solve problems.
Yeah, no, I don't want to get, because like the whole profit and putting back in and that sort of stuff is like, there are lots of businesses that are earning lots of profit and not putting it back in. So, and I'm sure that most of the circular startups will be making money and putting it back in, or developing or researching or whatever. But yeah, I'm thinking about how can we rearrange things? How can we share more information, rearrange things, change the relationship between all of the bits in a way that would make us more efficient at creating more of these solutions, because we all know that the big businesses are still just romping away with all the money and crashing the planet. But
AI is going to fix everything anyway, apparently. So just sit back and relax. AI.
Oh, I thought it was aliens, but it's about the same, isn't it? Yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, lovely to be here and chat with you guys about all these things. If you've got any ideas, I would love to, because I think we are still very siloed, and there's lots of people starting startups and then failing and wasting huge amounts of resources doing it by themselves. And I hate that thought when somebody's invested in what we are all invested in and wanting to make a difference. Like, how can we help the people that need help? Rather than go, yep, just go off and do it. And I mean, we've done that because of our cultural, social cultural norms. That's what we do. We do individualistic. Go and earn enough money to look after your house and all of the things you need, and then you'll be good. And it's not even the best outcome. I'm solo parenting a 2-year-old. That's not a good idea for anybody. But I mean, I can do it, but is it a good idea? Is it going to create the best outcomes? Probably not. He needs more than me to become an amazing human, right? So I think we're just thinking about the consequences of the design and what we've got in place, and finding other ways to do things is really important, as much as creating each one of the solutions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, let's continue the conversation another day, because everybody needs to go home. You need to go and have a beer.
I do. I said drink, actually. Has the recording stopped?
Yes,
I said drink, and now I can say I'm having a beer.
No, it's still going.
I'm still going. Oh no! Okay, what's going
on? You come back and read
what you're saying.
More than beer, Anthony. You need to have a dinner and cake.
Where are you going? Should we join?
Sorry. All righty. Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to dinner at Toil and Trouble, a new plant-based restaurant, 169 Lygon Street in East Brunswick.
Great.
So off there for dinner tonight. So if anyone wants to check it out, Toil and Trouble.
Okay.
But this is another of one of my points is, who knows about these things? The people who are really invested in that thing but could more people know about it and it create more impact? You know, I'm really interested in citizens' engagement and how do we actually get people involved in the solutions we want them to be involved in, not the ones that have the big budgets and are in our face with all the marketing and are controlling our technology. You know, like they're controlling what we're seeing. So what do we do about that? We need to elevate this conversation that is not only in here, it's also in the wellness space, it's also in the mental health space, or in the neurodiversity space. You know, like there's a whole lot of things that we need to change, and nobody's getting the information that they need to you know.
Well, we're all trying.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
yeah, we are, you know, there's lots of people that are really well invested in this.
Yeah, it's
and
okay, but we're all pushing the same way. We'll come together and coalesce, and our impact will be greater.
Yeah, I just want to make it easier, so I'm working on it, just so you know. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Good Karma Networks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started Good Karma Networks, so that's a good idea. Good, basically, an idea is like, if you've got a problem, come and ask.
Fantastic!
The group,
Congratulations, that's awesome what you've done.
Yeah, but you know, shut the organization down because not-for-profits are not good. I have you know, now yeah, basically there was no resources, and you know, so therefore I couldn't continue to maintain that or actually go and seed them if I wanted to, right? So that would have been good to have had some help, or to have done it with some other organizations, but you know, everybody's out there sort of doing it by themselves. But it's just it's a good way of kind of helping each other. Like, could we have a space where we could just help each other? That'd be really good. I'm going to work on it, you know.
Okay.
Anyway.
Karma Global.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Amy.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.
Thank you.
And enjoy your birthday, Anthony.
Thanks, Mary.